In this video, we are going to be focusing on wedge, solid line, and dashed line. In real life problem, let's take an example with a block. If you draw a block in front of you, there must be a portion or part of it that is looking away or behind, that is not facing you directly, while some portion of it is facing you directly, while there must be other portion of it that is just flat, that you can see it, not really behind, not really towards you, but it will just be looking normal. So most of the structure we draw in chemistry are in 3D format, which is like almost impossible for us to draw it properly on a sheet of paper. In order to represent it properly, we use the wedges and dashed line. When you said solid, a solid line, this is just a line which is flat on the screen or on a plane. This is a solid line. Example of solid line. This is also example of solid line. And this is dashed line. And this we call it wedge line. Or let me just call it wedge. In this case, this is the structure of methane. Though I'm just trying to represent this. Here we have this guy here is actually looking toward us. That is why we use the wedge line to indicate it. While the other guy here, which is the dashed line, is looking behind. In the case of solid, they're just flat on the screen. This is the 3D model. In this 3D model, if you notice, this and this are just flat on the screen. Let's call it 1, 2, 3, and the fourth one. The number 1 and number 4 are just flat on the screen. The number 3 and number 2, something happened here. What do you think happened here? In the case of number 3, it's actually very small and it's looking behind. It's looking away from the viewer, which, like, I'm having it very hard to see it. It's kind of behind. That is in 3D format. But this guy here is looking towards me. It's kind of bold. It's looking at me. That is why we use the wedge line. Because in this case, if this is 1, this is 4. This is also going to be 1. This is also going to be 4. If this is 2, this is 3. This is going to be 2. And this is going to be 3. Let's take another example. Let's take an example with trigonal bipyramid. In this case, this is also a 3D format. But in some cases, when you're trying to represent that on a sheet of paper, which can be very difficult for us to put it this way. If you look at this guy here, this, let's call it 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In this case, the number 1 and number 2, something happened there. But if you look at 3, 4, and 5, they are just plain on the screen. That is why I call them solid lines, or we call them solid lines. But in the case of number 2, the number 2 is looking like behind, away from me, which I am the viewer. And the number 1 is looking towards me. That is why we use the wedge line to represent that. We use the wedge line to represent number 2. We use we use the dash line to represent number 2. We use the wedge line to represent number 1. So let's take a quick revision again. When we set a solid line, these are just lines which are flat on the plane or flat on our screen. And when we talk about the wedge line, it's a use for a bond in front of the plane, and a dash line is used for a bond behind the plane. So this is it for this problem. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you find it helpful.